Hi, I'm Rashana Baldwin, a journalist, a Chicagoan, and a millennial bringing light to everyday stories that matter. I share the type of stories that mainstream media ignores or gets wrong. The news of the neighborhoods, the news that matters. Here is someone you need to know.
Meet Wendell Harris.
Wendell Harris, you're the VP of Lending at CCLF. What exactly does CCLF do for the community of Chicago, different communities of Chicago?
CCLF we're a community development financial institution, a CDFI, ultimately formed out of redlining. We began back in 1991 with very humble beginnings from a group of socially enterprise-minded individuals that were really looking for a source of capital for cooperative housing structures at the time. During that time, one of our main investors was the We Boat Foundation. At that point in time, I believe they provided to us about a $200,000 investment that continues to run with us today. Fast forward 2020, we are now a $100 million fund. We serve Metro Chicago, Cook in the 5 Colleran counties, with most of our activity occurring on the south and west sides of Chicago right now. So what does that mean? So we're primarily a collateral-based lender, specifically focusing on real estate, all asset classes, anything from vacant land acquisition for future scale development to small 1 to 4 unit projects, multifamily 5 units or more, mixed use community facilities, as well as large and small scale commercial retail. In addition to focusing on the real properties in the community, or communities that we serve, we also focus on the real people, specifically helping nonprofits and social enterprises with equipment and working capital.
Tell me more about how you help nonprofits, how the CCLF, how are you all helping specifically nonprofits with access to capital?
Sure.
What type of nonprofits?
So, I mean, there's no, specific, sector of nonprofit. It's all nonprofits, right? Whether we have a nonprofit that may have located a site and now want to acquire a piece of real estate to house their operations as well as their programming. We help nonprofits in that same vein in the event that they may need some working capital, right? So for example, that particular nonprofit may execute on state, city contracts to where they may need a $200,000 line of credit to be able to execute on that contract because that contract is paid in arrears. So that's actually an example.
But does it have to be a commercial real estate aspect to it?
No, it does not. So a nonprofit can come to us strictly for working capital, just to execute on the state and local contracts. So there is no need for them to purchase a piece of real estate. However, I think real estate is important for a lot of these nonprofits, right, to help build assets within the organization.
So with everything that's happened in this volatile economy, how are you all helping to keep small businesses, Black and brown, mom and pop shops afloat and still investing?
Good question. So this particular time period has forced us to step in a number of ways that we have not or don't have a deep history of executing in the past, right? So we are a grant administrator for the City of Chicago's Together Now program. We are a grant administrator for the Illinois Business Interruption Grant Program. We are facilitating small business improvement, City of Chicago Small Business Resiliency Fund funding as well, right? So as we start getting deeper into May and June, as you know, the need just grew deeper and deeper to help a lot of these small businesses, right? So it forced us not to change our focus, but to really broaden our focus, right, and figure out more ways of ultimately helping the people in our communities. And that's beyond just the real estate activity. As we entered March, activity was moving pretty well, and then we saw things starting to slow as we got into March and April. But suffice it to say, over the last 3 months, it's interesting, we've still looked at larger scale transactions. Larger scale transactions for us fluctuate anywhere from $2 to $5 million. And we're starting to see more of these now, which is actually a good thing, right? Because if we have larger scale investment coming into our community, it can also help the small and local investors as well.
So I'm a small mom and pop shop. I'm a cafe in Inglewood, and my store was looted, and I can't finish maybe the second phase of my property, or something happened. What would I come to CCLF to say to do? Would you all give me lending or funding to finish my project, or even repair some of the damage that was done that my insurance company may not pay for because of what happened with the recent civil unrest?
Most definitely. So again, this is the scenario right now and the narrative that we're putting into the market, right? Right now, if we don't step up, there's really no purpose for us at this time, right? Because this is when the rubber meets the road, right? We have all of these, we have a number of commercial real estate, retail projects that are boarded up right now. So I'm personally spending time out in the market to try to find some of these businesses that are seeking capital, whether they apply for PPP, whether they apply for resiliency funding, whether they're in the process of receiving grant money through BIG or Together Now. We're also trying to figure out ways how to get these businesses back online, right? Which in some instances has forced us, even though it is not our area of focus, it has pushed us to have discussions around working capital for some of these small businesses as well, which typically we refer that space to a LISC or a CNI, Summer Corps, and some of our other agency partners.
Why would clients come to you all versus traditional bank? What's the benefit of coming to CCLF?
Most importantly, we're designed to spend a lot of time with our local folks, right? If you think about some of the larger scale institutions, they focus on larger scale credits, right? To where our average, deal size is sub, $500,000, right? When you remove the outliers, right? The $6 million credits we do, the $5 million credits we do, it's a smaller dollar amount, right? And we're designed to spend the time with the clients to make sure, one, we're building good business acumen, right? If we're not taking the time to tell some of our investors, hey, we've looked at your financials, right? I know this is not a conversation that you want to have, but quite frankly, right now, you need to slow down, right? You need to figure out a way to allow what you have in your portfolio to begin seasoning, right? It needs to start cash flowing, right? And as you start to build up your liquidity, then we can have more of a discussion of trying to acquire more assets.
Can you dumb that down? You're using such big words of liquidity and having assets. What does that mean? So are you saying you look at their portfolio and you're like, you know what? You don't have enough money to invest.
Yeah, quite frankly, we have some real conversations when I close the door, right? Yeah, it literally can come to like, look, bro, you don't have enough cash, right, to be doing everything you're doing at this point, right? What you need to do, you need to finish this mixed-use 3-unit building and come back and talk to me in 6 months. Case in point, I got a young guy that I met. This probably was, call it 4 years ago, right? He came to one of our what we call Scared Straight one-on-one classes in real estate that Tav West leads here, right? Met the gentleman, great energy, has a nonprofit over in Pullman. I think this guy called me about 20 times, right? When I met him, he was on his first project. Project wasn't even completed. Couldn't really figure out how to get over the hump. One reason he came to our workshop, I think he spent some additional time with Tav. Personally, him and I probably talked hours on the phone, right? Come full circle, about a year later, he was actually finished with the project that we talked about when we met, and he was prepared to move on to the next. His liquidity position had changed, and he was really happy that we had a real conversation behind the door. I'll just say it that way. And I think that's the hardest thing that some of us are struggling with, right? How do we have a real conversation with ourselves to say, you know what, right now I'm not ready. Maybe another 6 to 12 months or even 18 to 24 months. But in that same vein, what's my strategy, right? What's my strategy as I look at myself and understand where I'm at, right? Building a strategy around that timeline. And it may constitute me partnering with somebody, right? A lot of us don't want to hear that, right? It's, oh, you don't want to give me a chance, or, it's fine. You want to give all these other folks that don't look like me money, but, as soon as a black man or black woman come and ask you all for money, I get all this red tape and all this paperwork. No.
Can someone come to you all? Can these investors that you're talking about, can they come to you all being a first-time investor? Is the average first-time investor coming to a CCLF or no?
So typically, we have not looked at first-time investors. Historically, we have sought after investors that at least have a couple years of experience, right? And it has a lot to do with our framework here. We're a small shop. Having said that, we have recently got into a relationship with the city of Chicago. They have a community receivership program, which is helping local folks that have limited and no experience go through a training program, right? That training program provides them with the needed belts and suspenders so that we can later have some discussion around financing, right? And we can later have more discussion around helping them build capacity. So in the past, we had not, but more recently, over the last year or so, we started to engage folks that are fairly new through this particular initiative with the city of Chicago.
What other resources is CCLF offering to small-time developers at this current moment with everything that's happened? What resources, how have you all been able to just keep people afloat, and what resources is being shared? What information is being given? What are you all doing to really address what has happened?
Sure. So on our technical assistance side, our VP of Technical Assistance, Tav West, is still having workshops regularly. I think at one point we were conducting them on a weekly basis. I think now we're offering them once a month on a host of different topics, right? I think we're constantly updating our website and providing additional information real time around some of the programming that's out there, specifically around finance. When COVID-19 hit, we had a COVID-19 resource page that was loaded with information for our community. So just trying to make sure we're in the know with the information. As you know, information is key.
People are still scared and hesitant to invest. What are you seeing in terms of your clients, the people who are coming to you all? Has that stopped? Has that slowed down? What is the current state right now? Should people be investing? Should people be working on their second and third property right now?
So I guess the answer is twofold. So yes, one, if you have the capacity, right, financially, so if you got some cash in the bank, right, two, physical capacity, right, if you actually have a project, right, if you have a good team around you that is able to get in a property at the right price, right, the goal is to get in as low as possible and be able to build out a quality unit, right? Whether it's on the affordable housing side, on the commercial retail side, right? So yes, if you have the capacity. If you don't, I think again, you owe yourself that real conversation, right? I want to do this. I want to tackle real estate. I want to become an owner and operator. So what is my plan, right? Right. How do I begin to build capacity, right? Whether it is, connecting with some of the local nonprofit organizations that offer, retail training programs, whether it is connecting with someone in my network, right, to learn more about real estate as well, or getting some just general education.
This is great information. This is really great. Is this an opportunity for those Black and brown businesses in our communities? We saw a lot of the big box stores and big names that they're leaving. They're not coming back because of the civil unrest and the damage. Is this an opportunity for these businesses to rebuild their community? And is it obtainable? Because oftentimes our people say, we're going to build Black. Is this really obtainable to really build local?
Right. So I think even with everything that's gone on and everything that's occurred, and as we know, there is a huge systematic racism element that's tied to all of this, right? None of us can deny that, right? In the same breath, I think with some of the support that is in the process right now, last week, the city of Chicago, through the Invest Southwest initiative with Maurice Cox, talked about this great narrative around helping, Black and brown developers and investors build capacity, right, on large scale projects, right? He seemed to be extremely adamant about, look, if we're going to build in these Black and brown communities, we're going to make sure, right, that Black and brown representation is going to be on these jobs, right? So I think there could potentially be a silver lining in all of this, right? I think it is up to all of us, right? Take a moment, if you believe in God, pray, and just have a moment of peace, right? And try and figure out, like, what's my direction, what's my purpose, right? If I'm, in a community, right, and there is that building down the street that I'm really adamant about, I think this is the time to think about it, right? It's especially, where a lot of these small businesses obtaining capital, right? PPP and, all these grant programs. I've had conversations with some of these businesses that are actually making out pretty well financially, right, out of this crisis, which sounds unusual, right? But
Small businesses you're talking about?
Right, just some of the capital that they've garnered over the last, call it 3 months, right, with some of these programs, right? So some of my words to them was like, okay, so you got this money, what are you going to do right now, right? You have been able to manage, and things have not been as bad as you thought. So how are you going to better position your business with this capital that you got, right? You got to look 12 months out, right? You got to look 24 months out, right? You got to look 5 years out, right? And be able to build a strategy to make sure your business is self-sustaining, because the reality is we may not be out of this particular climate right
now. What would your advice be to new investors who have a lot of PPP money, a lot of pandemic money? Should they jump in and say, I want to invest, this is a perfect opportunity? What would be your advice to those new beginner developers? Or should they just go directly to the city of Chicago and see what training programs they have available, as you mentioned earlier?
Sure. So I still think it goes back to, one, being honest with themselves, right? And understanding where they are, right? Understanding what their capacity is, and building the right framework around them to be successful, right? So jump into real estate with no socks and no shoes on, yeah, you might drown real easy, right? There's so many stories out there, all of the programming on HGTV has everybody
crazy
that they can be
unrealistic
in developer. And the reality is, I think there is a good portion of individuals that can become investors in real estate, but it takes patience. So that's my other point. They have to have patience, patience to understand the process with the city, permitting, process with the contractors, right? Process with understanding how to look at a piece of real estate that you and your business has the capacity to stabilize.
What do you say to a person who says, you know what, you all are not investing in our communities, they're not lending in our communities? What has CCLF done for our community? What would you say to that? How can we really get the money from you all or assistance?
Sure. So I have these conversations regularly as I'm out in the community. I think you and I have, bumped into each other on occasion at some of these community meetings. And, we do get that, right? Hey, I've been trying to get capital, you all don't give Black folks no money. You all ask for too much. And my response is like, what is too much, right? When you asking a financial institution for some money, or even let's dummy it down, right? You ask me for $500 and I don't have a job, what's going to be your question? Wendell, how you going to pay me back, right? So I think, even at that level, it's trying to get the borrowers to understand, right? If we're asking for 3 months of bank statements, right? We're not trying to suck up all your liquidity. We're just trying to understand the strength of the borrowing entity and the people behind the deal, right? Because as we're looking at these credits, we have to figure out ways to mitigate risk, right? It's understanding, right, your tax returns, right? And not only me, making sure you understand what's being put down on paper by your accountant, because there have been a number of instances where we have literally had deeper discussions with the borrower and they were not even aware of what the accountant was putting on paper, right? And yes, it may have helped them at the end of the year not pay taxes, but you can't keep your hands so closed that can't nobody put nothing in it, right? And if you're not showing any money, I can't put any money in it, right? So I get it, right? It's a balancing act, right? You have to understand what is your strategy? If you want to build value, build wealth, and grow, you're going to have to manage your business accordingly.
And who should they call if they want to get funding from CCLF? Should they reach out to you? What's the best approach to even get the conversation started?
Sure. So the best way is to go online, visit our website. You can do it through our info page, or you can call 312-252-0440 extension 101, or feel free to shoot me an email at wharris@cclfchicago.org. Again, that's wharris@cclfchicago.org. And I welcome the opportunity to have a discussion with you. But even before that, I definitely recommend just go to our website, which is www.cclfchicago.org. Take a look at some of the newsletters, take a look at the information there, and that can give an investor or anyone interested in CCLF a sense of who we are and what we do.
Awesome. As we wrap up, what I see you all in the community a lot. I see CCLF out in these communities around the city of Chicago. For those who may not know, what are some maybe 2 or 3 projects, community projects that you all have been a part of and funded and actually really helped from start to finish?
Great question. So first thing comes to mind, Inglewood Square. We provided a pre-development loan that was very patient in that particular project. We assisted with the larger capital stack for excess tenants. We also provided a layer of capital in the Stony Island Arts Bank. We've done a host of affordable housing projects on the south and west sides of Chicago, whether it's 1 to 4 unit properties or multifamily properties. We provided a layer of the capital stack for the hatchery on the west side. we're looking at a few different projects now, specifically over in Woodlawn or along that 63rd Street corridor, and we financed build out of the UPS on 63rd Street as well. So I think we have quite a few projects that I probably could talk for hours on. But to be honest, we are truly looking for ways to continue our historic narrative, and we need to effectively make change by reaching out to our market, right? And that's actually getting out into the market, attending some of these local events that are in the market so we're visible. But we're also hoping that we're contacted to be a good resource for our people in the community to figure out collectively how to strengthen and change the existing narrative.
That's great. God bless your all's ministry.
Amen.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's, it. I know we were kind of running on limited time. But again, I appreciate you allowing CCLF and myself to, be a part of this great narrative that you are showing to the public around Black and brown people, right? And these success stories, right? Because we need some positive notes right now, because we are all going through something now, right? In one way or another, right? It's a lot of pain right now that is just oozing through the streets of our community, right? And that's what it is, right? That's what I see. I see a lot of pain, right? When you look at the news, right? When you see the folks in the streets, right? This is pain that is built on, our ancestors, right? My mother's from Mississippi. My dad's from Mississippi. My mother picked cotton, right? My mother and father bought a house on contract, right? So a lot of this is just been boiling over, right? And this just happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back.
A lot of your partners, community partners, and other organizations that I talked to in previous interviews, whether it was Cook County Land Bank or Renovo, essentially says the same thing. And this is a great opportunity to really come together with the Black and brown communities to really rebuild them. And you all are doing just that and helping people to do that. So I thank you.
Oh, no problem. And I would say my last point is, let's figure out how to help somebody else, right? And I think if we all turn to our left or right and touch somebody else, I think ultimately it would make so many things.
You're taking it back to church. Look to your right, look to your left, and tell your neighbor that you want to help them and be a better steward of dollars in our community.
Because the reality is it would help, right? If I don't have enough experience and I look to my right and this, person actually has experience and this person is willing to look to his or her left so that we meet, that's when we really have movement.
Thank you, Wendell Harris.